Good morning. Today is Monday, March the 11th. It's 9 o'clock. This is a workshop meeting of Commissioners Court of Grimes County, Texas. We're at 114 West Buffington Avenue in Anderson, Texas. We're calling the meeting to order. We have two agenda items. With the court's permission, I'd like to go to agenda item number 3 first, which is discuss and review property located on FM 2445. Is that agreeable with the court? Acceptable? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Mr. Walker, don't mean to throw you off your game, but okay. We might have some of our court that have to bail on us before we're through with the third agenda, or the second agenda item. So, take us down 2445, please, sir.
Okay.
Do we have a handout on that?
Yes. The 8.5 by 11 is there. As Sheree said, they all look the same, but they're not.
Okay.
As y'all recall, the property on 2445 that we purchased a few years ago, 19 acres plus or minus, and from the beginning, the plan was that we were going to sell off part of that property. What I did here since last time we talked about this, I had the surveyors go out and cut it up into 3 parcels. There's one tract that's 9.0069 acres. That's the eastern half of the property. But that's the piece that we're proposing road bridge keep for our own use. And that's where the new barn would be built. The other large tract is 9.4525 acres, which is the western half of the property, which is proposed to be sold off. And then the small tract is like 3/4 of an acre, is the piece where the house is, that we carved out. We could either sell it or keep it depending on what the county's overall needs are. So, we have talked in the past on that house, the possibility of EMS using it. We've also talked about the possibility or the need of the waste disposal site to move from Stoneham up to this property if we were going to sell the property in Stoneham after we build a new barn. So, based on the discussions I've had, my understanding is the EMS people prefer to stay further south, that I don't think they were particularly interested in the use of this site. So I would suggest that the small parcel there for the barn, the small parcel where the house is, be sold off with the larger tract, which would bring that to slightly over 10 acres to be sold. My other understanding in the meantime, we've done some research on the property in Stoneham. There have been a number of concerns that there were provisions in the deeds that would cause that to revert to the previous property owners if we cease to use it, that kind of thing. Corey and John C. have done some research and looked at some documents on that. We have not found any evidence in any of the official records to indicate that there's any sort of reversionary clause on that property. So I think we're free and clear to sell that outright. The other issue besides the barn, obviously, once we relocate Road and Bridge and build the new barn there, we won't have need of that facility. The dump site there, talking to Kat, her preference, I think, is to stay where she is because that's where most of the customers are. There's greater population density closer to the Stoneham site. And I think having looked at the old original plats of the town of Stoneham and everything, there is an old road that was platted into that parcel way back when that could be reestablished to provide access to back to the dump site if we wanted to sell the rest of that property off, so.
Yeah,
No.
that's one of my big, I want to say, that's where I make a lot of our money is there in Stoneham. We can make $200, we make $200 on 3 hours on a Saturday. And that's where all of my customers are, just, you know, right down 302, 304 area. That's where all those customers are. So I'd like to keep it there. And that being said, if we did have to go in and make that easement and make the driveway at the other side of the property, it would actually improve the flow of traffic, because then they could pull in, dump their trash, and have a place to turn around and come back out. Right now, they have to pull in, either pull up beside it, back out, so you can only get one car in there at a time in the dump site. They have to wait. So even if we did, like I said, have to put in a new access, it would actually benefit us there at the dump site with traffic flow.
We also, I wanted to add to that, we anticipate growth with 249 coming in and all of that, and that is our southernmost dump site. So it already services most of the citizens in that area, and with the growth coming, I think will, you know, hinder it for people to have to travel across 105 to go dump their trash. We also talked about, Mr. Harry, I wanted to talk about this too. Where the dump site is, it sits behind the association's building.
Correct.
But the EMS sit right at the front of the metal building.
Correct.
So when we looked at it, we thought maybe if it were a way to swing the trailer around and maybe keep that little small portion to where they wouldn't have to relocate, because right now where it is, wouldn't it be kind of in the way of?
Yeah, it's, having the EMS trailer there obviously clutters up that property for sale. I have not had that surveyed yet, but, you know, just looking at it, it's gonna be in the front of that parcel. And probably not desirable for somebody that wanted to purchase the barn site itself. We can look at that.
Yeah, because the septic sits right beside it too.
The septic's right there. We, like say, you might look at pivoting the trailer or something like that, but not shifting it very far. My thinking is that we would continue to have Road and Bridge operate out of that barn until the new barn's built. So we got some time to sort out those issues of exactly how that would be reconfigured. But I think it probably would make the property more saleable if you did what you're talking about. So we could look at that. Like I said, I have not spent the money to have that property surveyed yet or anything. I felt like getting 2445 situated first made more sense. The other issue that's come up, Patrick had a gentleman come into the barn here a week or so ago and come visit, and he said, wanted to introduce himself, said he had just bought the community center, which is kind of interesting because the appraisal district has never been able to determine who owns the community center. So we don't know if this guy is legitimate or if he just has pipe dreams or whatever, but right now the access to the dump is through the community center. So we probably need to research that a little bit too.
I researched Coffee County Clerk's office, no deeds or anything have been filed. I talked to Justin, he was the first person I called, and he was like, if they purchased, paid money to someone for that property, we need to find out who it is, because most likely they didn't have the right to sell it. Because, like I said, the appraisal district has been looking for years, back when Bob Cochran was here. We really heavily researched that property to see about the county purchasing it. And we ultimately abandoned the idea because we could not find the owner, legal owners of the property to purchase it. So it's a big question mark as to if you really did purchase it, and if you did, who did you buy it from? And if you did buy it from whoever, did they really have a legal right to sell it?
Harry, what is the total acreage at Stoneham?
It's a little over 3 acres.
Also, one of the things that when we were out there looking, I don't know what the size of the building is, but we talk about storage all the time. And I know we're discussing maybe possibly selling the building, but even you could maybe investigate keeping the building and selling just the land itself, and keeping the building as a possible storage site for the county.
Well, I also have the thoughts that since we have that facility there, if you do move up to 2445, when you're doing South County work, leaving your equipment in that building overnight, and that's gonna save you 20 to 40 minutes of transportation time to get from,
It's not that far. but-
it's not that, okay.
Yeah, it's actually fairly close, but, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of possibilities of what can be done with that site. And I think there's some issues that need to be researched. Again, like I say, I think we've got some time to make that decision.
Certainly.
Because, you know, we haven't even started, you know, on the building, getting it, you know, planned out and everything. You know, so we've probably got at least 6 months to sort of sort out what we want to do with Stoneham. And I think there's definitely some more research that needs to be done. And, you know, there are a lot of potential uses. I don't know how valuable that property is going to be without the building. I don't think there's a lack of available property in the area if people just want some acres. But I think we do have some time to work on that part of the question.
I think Commissioner brings up a good point of, that's with 249 coming through, that could be a growth area, and as Kat's already mentioned, that's a high, because we certainly don't want to relocate the trash disposal area and then our citizens start disposing of trash locally because it's, well, they moved it, let them figure it out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
not that anybody would have that mindset, but
Yeah, I think sort of the consensus, at least at the staff level, is we keep the dump site where it is.
EMS where it's
Figure out a
at.
way to resolve the access issues, and I think that's, you know, a pretty minor problem. And then that, you know, alleviates the problem if this guy does come up and establish a legitimate claim to the community center. You know, fine, we've got another way to access it. And then we can sort of spend a little bit of time and think about what we want to do with the parcel that Road Bridge is using. The EMS, you know, they need to be probably reconfigured at a minimum. So I think, like I say, I would suggest we don't make a decision on what to do with that just yet. That we go ahead and continue to work on it a little bit. If y'all want, I can go ahead and have it surveyed and get that information together. Or we can hold off on that until we do a little bit more of the brainstorming on it.
I'd make the motion that on agenda item number 3, since we've discussed and reviewed the property on FM 2445, that we take no action at this time and table this item for a later date.
Well, I'd like to ask another question before we.
Well, we're not, I guess there's really no action.
Yes.
Yeah.
Presented on there
Right.
anyway, so.
The different drawings, now, just make sure I'm looking at them right, Mr. Walker. This one leaves the house out, right? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, yes.
This one is just the house alone,
Correct.
surveyed.
And you could put those together, or you could put the house with the other 9 acres.
And this is just the portion you want to keep, or what?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the eastern half of the property basically that we're interested in. It's got the best entrance configuration. The sight distances on the other part of the property are not as good for pulling trucks in and out. And that portion, on the east end there is a little flatter. There's not as much of a drainage issue to it.
Okay.
And the house, like I say, we've talked about different things. We just haven't come up with a red hot use for it. Again, the county's got lots of needs for facilities, for different things. There might be something useful that can be done with it, but I'm just not sure what that is.
So what I understand we're reviewing today is these 3 surveys.
Well, just a discussion of the property. Again,
The
this
new
is just a
property.
discussion today. And there is no action to be taken today, is my understanding. But what I would do is come back at a future council or commissioners court meeting and ask for permission to go ahead and start the process to sell those other 2 parcels, if that's what everybody wants to do. We need to go through that process, and we need to probably talk a little bit how we're gonna do that, and what kind of price we're gonna ask and that kind of thing.
So has an appraisal been done?
No, I have not done that.
Is the house structure worthy of keeping?
It's solid. It needs a little bit of maintenance work on the exterior, but the house seems to be solid. I don't see any major issues with it.
Because the longer it's vacant and not used, the more rapid it has a tendency
It
to
will
deteriorate.
That's true. And the only problem with the house is now it's surrounded by what's basically industrial,
Right.
use. I don't know how desirable it's gonna be for somebody to buy as a residence. Now, we've talked in the past, the possibility of going in and pulling up the rock on that part of the property and everything. Theoretically, it can be turned back into
Pasture.
pasture land. But I don't know, as it sits right now, how desirable it would be. But
Maybe a realtor's opinion could tell you what they think in terms of leaving the house with the larger parcel in the condition that it is. And then if they think that it's more, it may be more advantageous to take the material up, maybe they can give you a realtor's opinion on the prices, either or. And without spending a lot of money on an appraisal at this time.
I would welcome that kind of input. Again, that's not my strong suit. I can see that if you sold those 2 parcels together, somebody might want to come in there and use that as office space for whatever kind of operation they put in.
It makes the most sense.
I would
Yes.
think, just, again, my sense is that the property is probably more valuable with the rock on it, and that a contractor or somebody, that needs that yard space, maybe some sort of a small manufacturing facility, would want that. I'm not sure there's a shortage of pasture land that people would want to go to the expense of removing the rock and everything and restoring that, just to have
Well,
a
just-
residence.
When this thing was surveyed, Harry, excuse me for interrupting you, when it was surveyed, you got 3/4 of an acre with that house, and I know CenterPoint put in a new septic system in there. Does
Yes.
that 3/4 of an acre encompass that
Yes,
septic, total
it
septic
does.
system?
It includes everything that was within the fence around the house. And you can kind of see on the survey there is a small barn that's outside of that fence that we didn't include. Obviously, we can adjust those lines if we think somebody's gonna want it for residential type purposes. Again, I'm just not sure that's the most likely use for it. I'm, sort of what I envision is somebody, like I said, a contractor type or a small manufacturing facility might want to move in there and might want both parcels and use the one as office space at least.
And
Again, it's, like I say, it's not my strong suit, but
Can you just refresh my memory? I think that whenever this parcel was talked about to be purchased, that part of the reason that we did it was to harvest the material that's currently out there.
Part of the value of it is that material, and that's certainly still on the table. Again, I'm not sure, and I think Commissioner Walker's suggestion of getting a realtor's evaluation of the relative merits of selling it with or without that. If we can sell it for enough more money with that on there, then the value of picking it up is, because I mean, there's gonna be some time and expense in salvaging it. You know, that might be the better way to go. If, you know, if the opinion is that no, it's better off as cleared land, you know, we can certainly go do that.
Also, back in the summer, the EMS had a problem over at the trailer they were in, and they lived in the house for, what, about 2 weeks?
They stayed in there for a week or two.
Yeah, then we had a bed bug invasion.
Yes.
And storm. Oh. Well, it is what it is.
And it happens, okay. You're transporting people. But they lived there for 2 weeks and they didn't complain about nothing,
No,
but not working properly.
Yeah, the
or-
house is fully functional. I mean, obviously there's basically no furniture in it, but the kitchen, the bathrooms, everything works.
Right.
The septic field, like I say, is all within the fence there, and that, I believe Centerpoint redid that septic system when
They
they
did.
purchased
They
that
put a new
property.
And that's a great selling point even as a residential property.
They'd have to, Cat was watching them.
So, but yeah, I think, and if, I'd be glad to take your suggestion on getting with the realtor, and getting an opinion. If you have anybody in mind, I'd be glad to hear that too.
That would probably point you to somebody. We have to see what John says about, I don't know how we can do with realtor opinions. Okay. I know there's some new legislation on counties and cities getting realtors to market property, so we'll see what it says.
Lawyers complicate everything.
That's the legislators, they're complicated.
Well, most of them are lawyers.
Okay.
It explains a lot.
Well, do you have a plan of when you're gonna start your building?
I have had it on my list for the last couple of weeks to sit down with a company that deals with the manufactured buildings and start the process. I keep getting distracted with other things. I don't think it will take very long, you know, to come up with a plan. We've already kind of thought about it, talked about it, done some sketches of how we want to lay it out. It'll be very similar to the barn in Iola. That's a nice facility. The office configuration probably needs to be changed up a little bit, but it'll be very similar to that. And then, again, because it'll be a pre-engineered steel building, it won't take long to go through the plan preparation.
Okay.
Now, we'll have site work and things that needs to be done. We'll have to have septic, and I know some people that can maybe help with that. But
Was there any particular reason this particular?
just while we're talking about property, the county also owns that little postage stamp up in Iowa, which is an old barn site. It's only a fraction of an acre. It's like 2/10 of an acre. And it's fallen into disrepair. The town has been kind of pushing people to clean up, and particularly that area. It's been a little bit of an eyesore. We went in back last summer and cleaned up the property. There's still a tin barn on that. But I think, just to let y'all know, when we come to court for actual authorization for action, I'm gonna ask that y'all allow us to put that piece of property on the market also. It's more of a hazard for us. Again, it's an old tin barn, there's some junk and stuff in there.
Well,
Scotty got run off.
If you'd get that on an agenda item, that's not really on our workshop discussion today.
Again, this is just to let y'all know.
Sure,
It's
okay.
coming. But yeah, he got run out of there by the ground hornets when he went in to clean it up, so. And there were a lot of just old abandoned metal and stuff. It's just not a safe place. And it would help the town with their cleanup efforts too.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mallett probably get rid of those ground hornets.
I don't have a bee suit.
I'll loan you mine. Well, I don't know.
And thank you for coming over this morning. And be safe.
Thank you.
So in summary, since you threw in, you think there's additional legislation on realtors.
There was some legislation that was just discussed, and I'm in
Well, if it
a,
was just proposed, then it hasn't been adopted yet.
Yeah.
well, I saw
I
it,
don't know
I'm in a
anything about it.
real estate class right now, and it was in there, that it had passed.
Okay.
So,
You wouldn't mind sharing that information
I
with
will.
Cory? Maybe we could do some research and find out if there's something that's gonna affect you.
Or someone could be willing to just to give us an opinion of what they think. I guess that's kind of steers in the right direction without having to do a
Right.
monetary exchange, which is probably what the legislation's about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good approach. Like I say, I'm certainly not an expert on real estate values and what's more likely to sell and what's not. I think that would give us some guidance. And again, I'll be bringing an agenda item to court in the future on all this. Okay, did y'all bring your reading glasses for the next item?
I did. I keep
No.
mine. Just-
Uh,
We appreciate the larger font and than we've seen in the past.
Well, it's not convenient to have it on 6 pages, but you can't read it if you get anything less than that.
That's right.
And I apologize, the paving policy that the county has previously adopted, I left the copies of on my printer. I gave them to y'all at a prior court meeting. I don't know if anybody brought them or not.
I should have mine.
I have a copy of the item number 16 from the strategic plan. I don't know that helps what you're talking about.
I think he's talking maybe about this, Harry.
That you brought last
Yes,
month?
ma'am. I've got a copy of
Maybe,
this.
would you like for me to get one? Oh, you got it.
Stuff in here.
Yeah,
I think I printed.
printed them out and then walked off and left them sitting on the printer this morning.
That wasn't good. I think I probably have three of them. Now I have one that has 2 pages. I think I just did the other one.
Yeah, the,
It was just projects.
yeah, the first page is the significant part of it anyway.
Okay.
After you get through that first section, it starts to get into the design
Yes.
details and stuff.
And it gets into the overview for a certain year. I don't need one. I got 3 copies.
Thank you, Cory. Yeah, this is what has been established in the past as the criteria for determining what roads get paved in the way of new paving projects. We have this on the website. And I presume that in prior years, this was the basis for the generation of the paving list that we've been working on. The list we've been working on apparently was first established in 2015 and continued to get carried forward with some delays because of flooding and things. We had some years when we didn't do any paving or as much paving as we planned on.
The storm came.
But anyway, the main thing, the first section talks about the criteria to be considered, right away with traffic count, flood zones, the amount of base material, location as far as connections and things, and then the ability to partner with subdivisions being built. What I would suggest we add to this, to these criteria items is consideration of whether the road in question is a bus route, whether it serves industrial, commercial property versus just general traffic, and then also if it's involved in a grant project or something like that. The other thing I did when we went through and updated this, on the under item 5, one of the sub-criteria is the number of property owners. I subdivided that into the number of parcels and the number of occupied parcels. Because you could have, like a development like Bluebonnet where there are hundreds and hundreds of parcels, but there's a bare handful of residents, so it kind of distorts the picture if you don't consider how many of them are actually occupied. So what I did, since this item came up, we went through and updated the spreadsheet. There's the criteria section in there. The ones shown in red are the additional items that I suggest we add to the considerations. Some of the items are a little hard to determine. Increased usage of the road, it's hard to say paving a given road is going to increase the usage unless it's a through route, and then you think, okay, more people will choose to use that route versus another. So many of our roads are one way in and out. The people in those subdivisions don't have any choice whether the road's paved or not, they have to use it. So I didn't do a whole lot there. The other one, the isolation factor is pretty subjective too. As far as what we went through, I had my foreman, my superintendent go through and give me a list of potential roads to be added to our paving list. And then we went through and evaluated these criteria, and I made a somewhat of a ranking just for general discussion purposes. On the spreadsheet itself, everything above that blue line is what has been planned for this coming year. And everything that you see where the font is in green, with the street names and things, are projects that were already on the paving list. In some cases, they weren't on the plan for this coming year or this current year, but they were on the list from prior years, and we haven't gotten to them yet. So you'll see some of those. Everything that's shown in black are new additions to the list that have not appeared on the list in the past.
And an example of that would be Scarborough, Winston, Panther.
Right, like for whatever reason, the King Oaks roads have never appeared on the list. I think that probably has to do with some of the issues between the county and the developer on the deficiencies in the paving. But the county has accepted those roads, and for the most part, we've gone through and been able to patch, dig outs and small area patches. there are a couple of roads in there, Scarborough being the primary one, where the whole thing needs to be ripped up and repaved. So, and I've had ongoing discussions with the Property Owners Association out there the last 2 years about getting that scheduled and doing that, and basically the conversation was that rather than do a little bit, they would rather wait and do it all at one time. So last year, we didn't have anything of major significance in King Oaks that we did, so that we could do a whole section at one time this year. So
Makes sense.
again, it was never on the list, but it's been in our discussions for the last couple of years at least, and I think prior to that as well.
Can I ask what this at the bottom below the yellow line, that's in green, what does that mean?
The yellow line basically is the dividing line between what's planned for the current year and things that are for consideration for future years. So all these, if you look at, starting right below the yellow line, 204 North, 175, 192, all those roads that are shown below that line in black have not been on our paving list in the past at all. And then if you go down below that funny green colored line towards the bottom, those are roads that don't need to be paved. They're not rock roads that need to be paved. They're existing asphalt roads that need to be, have another course of chip seal put on. The chip seal doesn't last forever, and
Okay.
some of the roads we've done in the past are starting to wear out. And to preserve that, we need to go back and put another course of chip seal on it. So that's sort of the color coding.
Okay.
The very top section above that first green line, those are projects that we started last year and weren't able to finish at the end of the paving season when it started raining in September. Smithway, Magnolia Overhill, and pieces of 446 and 410. All the base work has been done. They're prepped and ready to go. The ditches have been cleaned out. And then rain hit and we didn't get to do the chip seal. So that would be my first priority for this summer, is go ahead and finish those. The next section, that blue section there, are the roads impacted by our grant project, the 2015 grant, 201 and 202. The grant basically addresses the roads from the bridge back to the end of the subdivision. On 201, goes from the bridge back to the 201 loop and all that. Only from the bridge to the railroad was planned to be paved. From the railroad back and around 201 loop, that's planned to be just base work. And then on 202, it's similar. We would pave from the bridge to the railroad, repave that section. And then from the railroad back past the end of the existing paving, Pine Brook down to Tawnyberry would be major base work and new culvert. So, and the thing, again, we penciled in the grant projects for this summer. However, we have until the end of the summer of 2020 to finish that project. And my preference would be to wait until we at least get the prices for our bridge projects in and see how much of the paving work we can actually afford to do under the grant, because the dollar amount of the grant isn't going to change depending on the bids. If the bid's coming in high on the bridge, then we may have to scale back on the paving work. So,
Harriet, Matt, on the paving, can you, our road and bridge department, do that competitively to a contractor? Or is a contractor far exceed, or not necessarily far exceed, but exceed fairly significantly what you're able to do the job for?
As far as the chip seal.
I don't know, you tell me.
We don't do hot mix.
Right,
We don't have the equipment, we don't have the
gotcha.
capabilities.
So you're out of that part?
We're
That's
out of
all
that part.
contract, okay.
I have not researched the contract prices for chip sealing. I could do that. I know Washington County contracts their chip sealing out. I'd be glad to look into that and see what they're paying. I've talked to Ross, their county engineer, and they do the prep work and then have a contractor come in and do the chip sealing. I can find out what they're paying for that. Of course, TxDOT does lots of chip sealing, but their prices, their way of doing things is not generally reflective of what we do. They manage to spend a lot more money
Sure.
doing things
Sure.
than we do.
Sure.
But
I just didn't know if that takes some of the pressure off of you, or, you know.
Well, I think it's a legitimate consideration, because as we have talked before, when we're doing chip sealing, it shuts down so much of everything else
Right,
to be done. And-
Right.
And that's, again, part of the discussion we've been having is that, you know, do we want to do a lot of paving this summer, or would we prefer to get caught up on some of the flood damages we've had over recent years?
and the answer is yes. So,
Yeah. You know, but I think it's a legitimate concern.
Sure.
We have spent a lot of time and money trying to get, things repaired, and we can't ever seem to get ahead. We just had 5 declared disasters now in the last 4 years.
Right.
We just got notice here recently that the storm last October has now been officially declared, and we will get some reimbursements from FEMA for that. Now, obviously, that wasn't nearly as bad. We're not gonna get a whole lot of money out of them, and, it'll probably be another year before we see that money. But we will get some reimbursements out of that. We still have not received all of our reimbursements from FEMA for prior disasters. But I think as of the last I checked, we only have about $89,000 still out, and that should come in sometime soon, I would think. So, but that's a decision that we need to talk about. The other thing I will tell you, the wish list, the blue line and up on here, what we had hoped for this summer is pretty aggressive. We would have a difficult time getting our arms around all of that. If we go ahead and defer the grant-related paving to next summer, then it becomes pretty doable. The little tan lines in there, the 403 and 404, those are roads that were paved by a landowner in the past, and there's an agreement between the landowner and the county that we would maintain them. And if you've been out there and looked, there's not much paving left on those roads anymore. And he approached me last year, 2017 actually, and said, hey, we have an agreement, y'all need to go ahead and take care of these roads. And we discussed it, we said we would. I told him we were gonna be replacing that bridge on 404, so that work's complete now. And again, we had an understanding that we would do this year. So, and those are fairly significant. It's about 3 miles of roads involved in that agreement. The good news is they're pretty solid as far as base material and things. There's not that much base work that needs to be done, but it's a lot of paving. And then everything else, like I say, all that, we kind of work from the top down, probably setting the grant stuff aside, at least until we get bids in on the bridge stuff, and then see how far the money we've got and the time allows us to go on the rest of the list.
can I interrupt you again?
Absolutely.
as I'm going through this, I've got 6 pages, and page 1 and 2 are the same, in the same order as 3 and 4, just additional information or different information. And 5 and 6 is the same order with additional information also, is that correct?
Well, let me explain how the spreadsheet's laid out. Pages 1 and 2 primarily show the criteria document, the listing of roads and the criteria. And then if you notice on the right-hand edge of the page, to the right of that big green block, up at the top, it says flexible base. That
Right.
next section is the base work that we need to do to prepare these roads for paving, which that money gets paid out of our road materials, but that's the preparation. I didn't do a very good job of getting my page breaks where they should have been. So then you flip over to page 3, and you see the continuation of the base work. And then there's another section that's labeled first seal at the top. That's the first course of the chip seal. And then the second seal starts on that page. Like I said, unfortunately, I laid out my page breaks when I had the criteria section all reduced down.
Well,
It didn't fit when I went to find it for them.
okay, but again, the roads are all in the same order and everything.
Yeah, the roads are in the same order. They're repeated on each page,
Yeah.
just so you can keep track. And then the titles across the top are repeated. For example, when you go to section 2, just so you can see what
Yeah.
those columns actually are.
Would you be comfortable giving us, and if you wouldn't, why not, but would you be comfortable giving us an email copy of this spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
I have to be very honest, I'm having difficulty seeing some of the smaller numbers. I mean, I can focus in, but I'm going in and out on focus.
Yeah,
Particularly
it's
White
tough
Range
to
and-
read, even, spread out over 6 pages. What I can tell you, if you go to page 5, the last set of columns is the totals for each group
Oh,
of
excellent.
roads. If you look, for example, it's column BB. It's the next to last
Yeah,
section there. The carryovers from last year that we need to complete represents $60,296. The grant projects, $198,000. The paving agreement, $196,000. And then the stuff down in the blue bar there that's really hard to read is $452,000 for base and the chip seal for that section of roads that we plan to do this summer. So, and that's where in the totals for everything in the top half of the page, they're shown in that yellow bar. $441,000 for base, $466 for chip seal, for a total of $907,000. We have enough money in the budget to do that this year. It's not gonna leave much in the way of base material for the rest of the roads. But if we pull out the $198,000 for the grant projects, that gets to be a pretty workable number for us. But yeah, I will send everybody the electronic spreadsheet too.
all right. I don't know if if the commissioners would like it, but I'd like to have it just for ease of reading.
Right. And then we won't have to scan it in or something if we want to keep it.
Reference to somebody calling from West North Bay Road.
Sure.
I did see link on here somewhere, didn't I?
If you go to the very bottom of, page 2, where that yellow bar is,
Link CR.
those are the hot mix
Okay.
projects.
And those are
A
contracts.
separate set of formulas, that would be contracted out. And I have Link Road and the remainder of County Road 302 down there, which, that's one of those notes that's been in here since 2015. County Road 302, do a mile or so every year with the money left after you do these other things. Well, there's never been any money left. But now we're thinking about reversing that, and go ahead and do another section of 302 now, rather than always make it, just keep getting bumped to the next year. But yes, that would be, we would do the base work, and we'd have a contractor come in and do the actual asphalt work.
Do you think it would be possible for you to have some projections coming up to budget on what he asked you about, comparing us doing the work compared to a general contractor coming in and doing the work?
Yeah.
I have another question. I got the notice from Miss Bobby that as of today,
As of today.
you guys went on your 4-day work week, where you're going from,
It's 410s.
yeah, what time do you start?
7.
Okay. So 7 until 5:30, and then you're off on Fridays. I had mentioned to you in the past, when we were talking about a second ditching crew, and I just threw out the idea, well, instead of us buying a second round of equipment, what would be the possibility of, at least when we're in this time of the year, hiring people like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and put them on 12 hours a day, pay them 36 hours, or pay them 40 hours, but pay, working 36 hours. The idea, that would be their premium, they're only having to work 3 12s, of letting them run the equipment on the ditching. But I still would like some discussion at some point on that, but if it came down to, is it ditching crew that's a shortage, or base prep, which is a shortage, or cool seal or chip seal, which of those three is your biggest delinquent or keeps you behind the most?
It's really all of it, the way it works together.
Because you got a ditch, you got a
We
base.
gotta prepare the ditches.
Yeah.
And that's being done with the ditching crew, with the drainage crew. And then the road bridge
Right.
crews come in and do the base preparation, and that takes more time and effort and money than the chip seal. Once we get to the chip sealing, that's very high intensity for a short period of time.
Right.
Several of y'all been out there. We have a bunch of pieces of equipment and a bunch of guys. It basically takes one whole road bridge crew and half the other crew for the chip sealing operation.
Okay,
But most of these roads, we can do an individual road in a day or less. But it just, when you go through, we've got 15 or 20 roads on that list,
mhm,
and the timing and shifting material and
Yeah.
equipment and everything, it ends up taking most of the summer.
well, my focus was on, okay, maybe we could do the ditching crew on the weekends, but maybe it's the foundation crew that you could work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I know that we don't have it budgeted, but just like what you said a few minutes ago, we've had 5 disasters in 4 years, and we don't know what the next 12 months is going to bring us. I would almost be willing to go to the auditors and say, hey, for a 3-month period or a 4-month period, we need to bring on some additional people, not buy more equipment, but bring on some additional people to give you some, I don't know, a 7-day operation is gonna give you any relief, but give your department overall some relief, where we keep playing behind ball, and we need to be playing some catch-up ball. And it's not your fault we're not there, Harry, because we restrict how much money we give you in your budget. But if there would be some way where, okay, we have enough equipment, but we're short on manpower, let's do an emergency on getting some manpower in there. And then, you know, as we do the next budget, then we take a look at getting additional equipment if it's the proper thing. The downside is, we don't want to have all this equipment, and then people drive by and look in the yard and go, well, they sure got a lot of equipment doing nothing.
Yeah.
But, you know, if it's, I don't know if it's an equipment shortage or a manpower shortage, but since we're just now starting that season.
If we were to put on a, you know, weekend shift, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Discussing, and then obviously it's a manpower shortage. We've got all the equipment and it gets parked.
To be correct, person power? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And the, particularly on the drainage crew, we're discussing the possibility of going to second crew. If we were able to work things where we could put on that weekend shift for the drainage crew this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, you're talking about going out and hiring new people.
Yes.
Because if you ask the same guys to work 7 days a week, that's not gonna work.
No.
But so we're anticipating the possibility of maybe hiring people for a second drainage crew next fall, depending on how things work out, the budget discussions and things. You know, we could maybe look at hiring those folks now and have that second crew working weekends now. We'll see how that goes during the summer with long hours. And then, you know, traditionally we shift back to 5 days a week in the fall. Maybe at that point in time, you know, those guys become the second drainage crew. So we could certainly look into that. That would be my first priority, is the additional drainage capacity.
Mhm.
You know, that, again, having that second shift, like I say, we've got the equipment. You know, we could probably make a lot of progress on our ditch work and keep the paving work going at the same time, because we've got the resources to do it. The other thing that, if you know, we have 4 dump trucks for the ditch crew right now
Right,
that are the small trucks.
right.
If they're working a different shift from the regular road and bridge crews, we could use the big trucks, or we could use more trucks, you know, if we have the, you know, the drivers and things. And we've got, you know, multiple grade-alls available on the weekends, that we could, you know, significantly increase that effort. You know, do the 3-day, you know, 36-hour deal. Might have some real possibilities. My main concern there, I mean, the whole budget issue and getting the approval to do that, but finding the people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not a great market to be hiring people, although, you know, I know there are some folks out there that have been sort of following this discussion of a second drainage crew and expressed an interest in coming to work for the county. And if we could bring them on board sooner rather than later, it might help out, just avoiding losing them to someone else.
But you know, maybe if we only did it, have our plan of doing it 4 or 5 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And, you know, and let them know, okay, we got summer work for 4 months, and then you're gonna be off for hunting season, and you get to stay home by the fire in the winter, and then we're gonna pick it back up in the spring. Because there might be some people who are early retirees, you know, age 50 or 55, and they're still looking for additional income, and they know how to do some of this
And
work.
I think in the past, Road and Bridge used to hire some summer help.
Okay,
You know, and not to do this kind of stuff, but to just run shredders and do side
Right.
building and that kind of thing. You know, what we could do, you know, definitely look at doing more of the core mission.
well, we got enough, you know, college kids locally that they might be looking for summer work, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to give a
Well,
college kid
okay.
$400,000 piece of equipment.
No, but I mean, but, you know, if they ran the shredders and that kind of
Yeah.
thing, but follow what I'm suggesting on it?
Well, and that's one thing that, and again, I'm kind of just talking off the cuff here, but if we were to go this way and have the budget to hire additional people to do that, what I might want to do is sort of sprinkle in some of the current hands.
Sure.
To make sure we have some continuity, we don't have a totally brand new
That's
crew
right.
with, no
Guidance.
background on how we do things.
There could possibly be some of your Monday, Thursday guys say, oh, I'd love to work Friday through Sunday.
Yeah.
With the understanding when we go back on time, then they go back to the 5 days, but you might find that,
Yeah, if you set it up as,
They might find it
basically this
appealing.
is temporary summer help, so
Yeah.
to speak, maybe a long summer, but, set it up like that, and those guys know that there's no promisers anything at the end of the summer. And anybody that you shift over knows that.
their job is good, yeah.
Yeah, they're not jeopardizing their full-time job.
I mean, just, I throw it out there again to think about that because of the situation that we're in, you keep playing catch-up and, it's not your fault. And if we keep doing that, we keep having the weather impact, we're not ever gonna get ahead, so.
Short of hiring some better weathermen,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Have we traditionally did overtime on Fridays also? And we still continue that practice or what?
We have a limited amount of overtime money in the budget. We have, what we normally have done, we use it, when there are situations that occur, like when we've had these floods and things, we burn overtime then. And in the latter part of the summer, we'll use some of that money to have people come in on Fridays and Saturdays and do shredding and do side booming and those kind of things, because it's hard to keep up with the vegetation in the summer.
Right.
And when we kind of get to the point where we can sort of see, okay, we don't have a big natural disaster that's caused us to have to work overtime, we'll start burning that kind of money, late in the budget cycle.
Okay.
In the past where they were actually hiring summer help, that's my understanding, it was shredding and side booming was pretty much what got done.
Because many times we stop off on the maintenance and go do these projects, but there are things that still need to be maintained.
That's right.
Whether they're cold mix or not. You get holes from all of the weather we've had. So we definitely don't want to see those things fall in disrepair because we're so busy paving before or hot mixing. That's what we ran into an issue before, that maintenance was just getting dropped.
That's right. When you put 3/4 of our resources into paving projects, then the routine maintenance falls behind. We don't, we do use 100% of our resources on routine maintenance, every day until we start paving, and then that routine maintenance goes down to, a quarter. Now, in the long run, as we get these roads, paved and everything, the maintenance should drop off. But we're a long ways from the point where we're gonna see that real benefit. So, yeah, it's either just additional overtime money for the guys we've got, or the judge's suggestion that maybe, a weekend shift. Either one would help, on catch up. Obviously, the dollar efficiency is greater with the second shift because you're not paying those guys overtime. Whereas our guys, if they work on a Friday or Saturday in the summer, they're getting time and a half. So it's nice to get things done, but it's not as cost effective.
But if you got a full load though,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
There's
so-
there's a reason companies pay overtime when you can't keep up.
right.
Sometimes you need that premium. It's
Well,
worth it.
and I said 12 hours a day for 3 days, the decision might be, they're on 10-hour days too, and they just work 30 hours over the weekend. Since those would be, i.e. part-time people, then we don't have to worry about the load on them, because they're going to
Yes.
come in and they're gonna go.
That keeps
They're
it
just their,
under that
they're just their
load.
hourly pay, so we keep
That's
that
a
up.
possibility if you keep it under a full-time
It's easy.
load where they're not collecting, the insurance and
Yeah.
everything.
And if these folks know that coming in, then they're not gonna say they're gypped or cheated or anything like that. We're just giving them more hourly work.
Yeah, and
Well, how difficult do you think that would be to actually get a crew to come in?
I don't have a clue.
I mean, I think it
I
might
have-
be pretty
Yeah,
I have no
difficult with
clue.
the market the way it is.
I don't know what I would think, particularly if we went that way. You're probably gonna find people that are working another job, and either have flexible hours or they're working part-time somewhere else, and they have the hours available and don't necessarily need the insurance.
Sure.
'Cause that's one of the biggest selling points we've got in hiring people is that we have insurance. And a lot of these
But
contractors and construction companies and things don't pay for
Dan,
that.
I think-
Commissioner Mallett, I just thought it was a
Yeah.
brilliant idea on my part. I just wanted him to figure out how to do it.
But I think it'd be good to discuss, you know,
It's
for,
like that
you know, when we
commercial.
actually start budget talks about a second crew, to maybe bring in and hire that crew in early to do that weekend shift and then purchase the equipment for the following budget year or something. That could be a discussion. And, you know, like I said, bring them in early and try to catch up and get a little bit ahead while in the summer hours there, so.
I
Because
probably,
we're pretty through our budget by that, you know, by that
Oh, yeah.
time, I would think, as far as what we would like to do. So-
and I've always had that conversation with him about, ask Washington County how they get all their roads done, you know, because they've got,
They
I
don't,
mean-
I don't think they have as many roads as we have.
They don't.
They don't.
I don't know, but they're all paved.
Yeah,
now,
they
and
got,
I'm like,
they have good roads.
How many total miles of county road?
It's over 600, doesn't it?
680,
It's
isn't
about
it?
650.
We've got roughly 620 miles of county roads, and then there's another 40 or 50 miles of, town roads that we maintain. So it's getting close to 700 miles.
And how many
like
miles are scheduled to be
688.
paved this year?
This list, everything that's on here, find which sheet it shows up on. Okay, it represents right at 50 miles of roads. Then it.
For this
our
year?
target, no, not this year. Total. This is basically a 5-year list. Our target has been 10 miles a year. Some years the county's met that, some years not. But yeah, it doesn't look like that much, but you're talking about 5 years worth of work at the rate we're going right now.
Yeah, so it seems to me that the paving projects, while I'm not opposed to them, may be counterproductive to the whole scheme of things. Because we've got, well, let me ask you this, how many complaint calls do you get about paved roads?
About paved roads, we get our share of complaints about paved roads because they develop potholes and things and they get rough.
But primarily, what is your complaints
The
about?
biggest complaints we get in the summertime, it's dust on the rock roads. In the wintertime, it's mud on the rock roads. And then potholes on the paved roads. Those are the three main issues that people call and complain about. And it may be the same people calling summer and winter complaining about whatever road condition they've got, they're gonna complain about it.
Because
And-
even on your pave, you gotta level up.
Yeah,
'Cause
the-
some
the
go
paved
beyond.
roads- the Paved roads get rough and a lot of, it's different than a rock road. You have bigger holes that really impact your driving. And the nature of it is people drive faster on the paved roads, so when they hit those potholes, it's more of an impact. That's part of the reason we added, in the past, we haven't had a list of the, third course or rework on the paved road. We have had a budget item for basically repairs on paved roads. We never really had a list, per se, in the past. Now, the good news there is that work goes much faster, because there's not nearly the prep work to be done. You go in and you do point repairs and you fill the potholes that are there and you come in and put one course and level up over the whole thing. So you can knock out a lot of mileage pretty quickly, and it's not as expensive miles, but you know, the things you've paved, you gotta maintain, and then over time, as we get more and more roads paved, the overall maintenance goes down, and it shifts more to pothole patching and level up and that kind of thing, and less to grading roads. Okay, right now, the rock roads are never done. It's a constant process. You can fix, like the ones we prepared last summer, they got full thickness of rock on them, they're crowned right, they got ditches and everything. They will deteriorate in a few years between the water and the wind and the dust. All that's taking material off the roads. So you will never run out of work with rock roads. Now, paved roads is also true. They need ongoing maintenance, but it much less over time. They last longer. So, and I think like Washington County, Waller County, and some of the counties where they have kind of gotten over that hump and gotten a larger percentage of the roads paved, then the maintenance effort, the ongoing maintenance on the rock roads keeps shrinking, and they're able to keep up with the paved roads. So I think in the short term, it's a negative impact on the maintenance. The paving is a negative impact on the maintenance on the rest of the roads. In the long term, it will help you out. And I think one thing, the county has not used contractors a lot in the past because of the expense. The numbers I put in for the asphalt work down here are contractor numbers. And you'll see those couple of roads, it's pretty expensive, even with us doing the base work and everything.
Yeah, hot mix is just very expensive.
Yeah, but, like I said, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the expertise to do that. We do pretty good with the things we do, but I don't want to take on any new skill sets just at this point in time. I don't want to go out and buy a lay down machine and, everything that goes with that and develop that. At some point in time, we may be there, but I think it's a good discussion to have as a consideration of how much paving you do, how much general maintenance you do, and how much really ought to be contracted out. But I will, for next session, I'll do some research on the contract prices for chip seal work. And we talked about the second shift. I'll look into that some more and discuss it with superintendent and foreman, what they think, kind of brainstorm that.
About how many miles of county road are paved?
About 150, roughly a quarter's paved and 3/4 is not.
Out of the 688 or something like that.
So at the rate we're going, it'll be another 50 years to get all the roads paved?
Maybe.
You'll probably be out of office when we're done.
I'll probably be sitting down with some coffee, for some coffee with it somewhere.
And you brought up something that was mentioned, and I've heard it mentioned over and over in here, and you may hear it again since you brought it up today. There were, in the past, they discussed doing a mile a year of certain roads. And I know you've heard it before, you've probably heard it. And you mentioned 302, but I just wanted to say you're probably going to hear that again now.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those things that there was a big bold black note in the original list I inherited that said 302, do another mile or so a year, estimated $580,000. But it kept getting put, and even in the note says after these other things are done. Well, there's no end to the other things. So the county just had never gotten to it. I think, we've discussed actually going ahead and doing the rest of that or another mile of that this year, even though we didn't have it in the plan, because we do have more money in the budget this year. It's actually been an interesting phenomenon, because with the FEMA reimbursements we've gotten and the pipeline company reimbursements and things, we actually have more money right now in our road materials than we started the year with.
Wow.
Even though we put a lot of rock out, we've done a lot of work. But the budget has grown just from this outside income we've got, which I'm thinking, okay, what's the best way to utilize that may make the most of it? And some of these more expensive projects look pretty tempting.
Well, is it the volume on 302 where we need the hot mix versus the seal coat, or
Pardon, say that
the
again?
course? Is it the volume, I guess, of the traffic on 302 is why we're putting the hot mix on there versus?
Yeah, again, 302 was originally done under a grant from the state.
Oh, okay.
And the original plan was to go all the way to 362. And the project came in and cost more money than what they had estimated. And like these other grants, you only get so much money. And so they took the paving as far as they could with the money they had and stopped. And ever since then, I think there's been a commitment that, okay, we're gonna go ahead and finish that one day. And, that's why that note appeared. I think the grant.
Well, did it say anything that it had to be hot mix, or could we, put that in the list for the course? Yeah.
Yeah, 302 is probably the closest thing we have to a true collector in the county. It carries a lot of traffic.
So, yeah, the course mix probably wouldn't hold up
And
for very
it's,
long.
I think it's probably justified. Just like on Lake, we're talking about, going ahead and putting a hot mix on that because of the nature of the traffic, the heavy loads. Just maintaining that as a rock road, I don't think is a good long-term solution. But yeah, we could go ahead and just do, routine, asphalt pavement repairs, do level up and such on 302 if that was, the decision. I'm kind of big on honoring the commitments that the county's made in the past.
Certainly.
Even if it was done by other people before I got here. I know some people kind of come in and want to wipe the slate blank and start over. I feel like the county's got commitments they've made in the past and that we have an obligation to honor those. I don't know.
Well, how many miles are
Totally
left?
what on
Yeah, how many
302?
miles are left on 302?
Just a second, I can tell you. I think it's about 2.5 miles.
So it's pretty close.
Yeah, about 2.5 miles.
302 is the busiest road in the county as
Yeah.
far as traffic numbers. And during the Renaissance traffic, that road is heavily used. There's a lot of bus traffic on that road, I believe. I know years ago when I was teaching in Navasota, we had several buses going down there. I'm sure there still are. And with 249 coming in through there, that's going to increase the traffic that much more.
And it's become a link, if I make no mistake, between 362 and 1774.
Yeah.
Well, I was
You have a lot of
thinking
people
too, is a
traveling.
possibility is the base pretty good on the rest of that road, or is that something we need to, instead of
Yeah,
sending a
we-
crew out there to fix the base for a mile, we could fix the base, put in a course mix on there, and then coming back and doing a little bit of, next year, maybe,
Yeah,
doing the hot mix on top of that course.
Yeah, now what we've talked about doing on 302 is go in and do dig outs in the bad spots, repair those spots, and then come in and overlay the whole thing. Not, if you look at the numbers, we estimated an average of 2 inches of base on that road. And Sam said, yeah,
So it's pretty
Probably
close
it's
to
closer
meter.
to an inch than 2 inches, but just to be careful. We want to.
But if we've got 2 or 3 years, I'm thinking as well, we've got a crew out there to have the whole, I don't know if that'd be an option to have the whole,
That wouldn't
base
be-
put on and
yeah,
then
that
maybe
wouldn't be a
just
bad
to protect
approach
it to.
If you went in and prepared all that, and I think what you're saying is go ahead, prepare it all now and come back and overlay.
Chip
or
seal
maybe
on
a
it.
Chip seal.
Yeah, and then coming back
And
and,
then
you know,
come back
in period
after
of
you got
time
that
to
all
put
done
yeah.
and
That
put
way it
hot mix
protects
on
your
top of
base
it.
and then you can put the hot mix
Yeah.
on top of that.
That wouldn't be a bad approach either, and I think the folks out there would appreciate. We had a lot of complaints on
Yeah.
302 this year. And it's, again, it's one of those things that, because of the speeds that people drive on the paved roads, the issues that are there get magnified. But we did quite a bit in the way of pothole repairs and some little open things in different places. But it's, it's a project I think we'd like to finish. Again, that sort of becomes our collector. We had a similar note on 447, continue another mile every year. And that is sort of a collector through that section of the county. 306 is kind of in that same boat, except that I'm sort of reluctant to do much on 306 right now until 249 is finished. And we'll go in there after all that mess is done and straighten that out. We don't have a lot of collectors in the county. We don't have long through roads that go from, highway to highway in too many places. 302 is one of the few. It's unfortunate it didn't go straight on across to Highway 6 or really carry a lot more traffic.
It should have.
You got to jog around now, but that's what we got.
302's got quite a bit of damage from the floodings that we had in 15 and 16 too.
Yeah, that
A lot
end of the
that
county
is.
got hurt worse.
Yeah.
Well, really, up until the October storm, every one of those floods did more damage than the south end.
Yeah.
On 306, does it, with the onset of 249 coming in, do you see it being a road that they're gonna use more of while they're constructing the road?
I think it will become a little bit of a collector for 249 because it's gonna be one of the few connections.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be a great connection as it's planned right now, but it will be a way for people to get on 249. And so I think there'll be more traffic gravitate to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we should consider doing maybe another little thoroughfare type study, kind of like the intern kind of did for us, a graduate student, I believe. Well, especially with the new 249 coming in, kind
Right.
of
Now that we have.
development type areas of potential to where we can come in and really reassess what kind of roadways we might need through there.
Cause they're coming on through, you know.
It's coming, so we want to plan ahead of it for sure.
Yeah. When I was through there the other day and I see it going across 1774 now, is there any, on the other side where the Mill Creek is there some other project that's going on up in there also? I mean, when I'm coming out of Magnolia, there's another overpass. Where is that? Is that tied into 249?
That's coming over on 1774
It's
across the
coming-
railroad track.
Well, there are two projects down there. 249, of course, crosses 1774 there, just north of the Renaissance Festival.
Mhm.
But TxDOT is also doing a safety project on 1774 from that point down to the county line.
To the county line.
To the county line.
So it doesn't impact our county, it comes just to
Well,
our
no,
county.
it's from the Waller County line up to where 249 is gonna cross 1774.
Oh, okay, so that does run over there?
Yeah, and I-
Okay,
You
that's
know
what
where
I was
you
trying
come
to-
up 249, stop, go across the railroad track in Magnolia, and then come up
Yes.
7. They're bypassing that crossover, the railroad track, that's what that one overpass is.
Okay,
doing.
that's the one
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Does it come
And it
into
swings.
Grimes County?
Yeah, it swings back into 1774, so it's just gonna expedite that flow of traffic.
From 1774 into Magnolia, over
Correct,
the
yeah.
track?
Correct.
Okay, that's what, I thought it was coming into this, I just couldn't
Yeah,
make it
and
out.
I heard recently that they've started on that project too, but it's kind of weird because I've always envisioned 249 as basically a north-south route,
Mhm.
but through Grimes County, it's pretty much east-west.
Yes, it is.
It's deceiving.
It crosses 1774 there, north of Tide Mission,
Mhm.
and then of course goes over to 105, close to NOV, Ball Ridge, that area.
Mhm.
Yep.
17, whatever.
But from that crossing, where 249 hits 1774, going south to the Waller County line,
Mhm.
TxDOT is doing what they call a safety project there that I think basically consists of going in and putting in a continuous left turn lane in that section.
Okay.
And I think that work has actually started here very recently. I haven't been down there to look at what they're doing yet. But that came out of, they did a study of the 302 intersection with 1774, which has been a traffic safety problem.
Mhm.
And then I think sort of they tied it into 249. So there's gonna be a lot of construction in that corner of the county here for the next couple of years.
So 302, doesn't it tie into 304?
Yeah.
No, to 306.
Is it, it's
304, yeah.
304, I thought.
Yeah, 302, 306, and 304 goes north
Yes.
south between.
Okay. So with 249 coming in there, does that increase the volume of flow, you think, on 304?
It's going to from 249 to 302, for sure, for the
Yeah.
Renaissance, probably for the Renaissance traffic, coming in kind of the back way there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some of the flow of traffic is gonna be drawn to 249 and all those roads that intersect. I think we'll pick up more traffic. And then the other thing that will happen over time, I think we will see additional intersections on 249 develop.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. Well, there are some places that it would really benefit the county. Connecting Pine Brook to 249 would help a lot, because that's way too many, parcels down there with only one way in and out. And there's actually quite a bit of activity in there. It's actually surprising how much new construction is going on in there. But there's some other subdivisions that are gonna wanna tie in areas, that I think over time, once 249 is built, you'll see additional intersections along there.
All right, well, that answered a lot of my questions.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us or ask us about or get input on?
Now, I've got a short list of things to look into,
A long list of things to get done.
a long list of things to get done. If y'all think of other things, after we break up and everything, feel free to give me a call, let me know. Again, this is, to me, sort of prep work for doing our budget this year.
Yep.
I don't know if y'all set dates yet, when we're gonna start into budget hearings and things.
Join us on Wednesday.
I will. It's a standing appointment. But, yeah, actually, in a lot of ways, this helps simplify my budget preparation, because I just got a chance to start on it about a month earlier than I normally would have.
And maybe we ought to have these talks every year, a little bit ahead of time where he can focus
That would be,
his budget.
that would be fine with me.
Harry, I had a question on your spreadsheet, which I think is awesome, by the way. The column, it says bus route, so I'm assuming if it has an X in that column, that's a bus route?
Yes, and
And
then
what does NR mean?
no response. We didn't, some of the school district either didn't respond or they left out certain roads that we'd asked about.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I just have a comment. We appreciate everything you're doing, Harry. Very much so. That's a great job.
I think it's a good discussion to have. You know, the list we were operating on had not been, I mean, had been updated from the standpoint of things got done and we rolled off the end of the list.
Sure.
Really hadn't sat down and got a good look at the overall. I'll send y'all the electronic version. And then once you can actually read this stuff, you probably have more questions.
Do we ever look at things like reinvestment zones?
I don't really have any background in that.
Okay, I know it's a mechanism that we've used in the past, like when we got the money from the state and we drew the lines around 170 something up there where the oil field damage was coming in, and that money had to be spent in that area. But there is also a mechanism to where if, say, the citizens out on 446 say, hey, we want to pay a penny more for these many years on our taxes to get this area paved, then you can create a reinvestment zone and that money go back into that zone and do what it's supposed to do, and at the end of its life cycle, then it ends. But it's a way of citizens maybe wanting that say, hey, we want to contribute more, just get our roads done, you know, we'll be willing to do it.
Yeah, I have a little bit of familiarity from just working around some things like that down in Houston, these tax increment reinvestment zones. And again, I'm certainly not an expert, but the issue that I've seen, the ones that I'm familiar with were put forward typically by developers who wanted to go in and had a large, like the West Chase District, they had a large area they were planning on developing or redeveloping, and they wanted to retain the extra tax value in that neighborhood. But they're set up with a separate governing board, and that's where kind of the rub typically comes in, is that the governing board typically doesn't want to just do roads and utilities. They want to do a lot of landscaping and amenity things. And then other people around the rest of the county kind of look at it and go, well, why do they get to spend their money on all these other things? We'd like to have some of that too. So there can be some controversy with it.
Well, I don't think we have governing boards
I'm
with that.
I'm not sure you have to have an independent board.
This would probably be the governing board.
Yeah, I would, if you know, are interested in looking at those kind of things, I think that would be the way to do it. Because y'all have to look at the needs of the whole county, and then you would address, you know, this one specific area.
Yeah.
Similar to like the industrial park. There's certainly an argument to be made that different policies and practices would be appropriate there. But somebody that balances the general county needs and those special district needs, I think would be the appropriate way to go. I don't like the independent boards.
Well, you have citizens like, say for instance, Ms. Ward that comes in all the time, and she's saying, you know, I'll be willing to work with my community to see how many, I mean, most of the time it's put to a vote of that community or whatever area it affects. But it's also called a way of creative financing for a county too, to get some projects done and get them out of the way.
There are a lot of different mechanisms for doing those kind of things. basically, they all involve people voting to increase their own taxes in some form or fashion. And in some areas, people are willing to do that, and others.
Well, with some of the stuff we're looking at, we're gonna have to start thinking outside the box because they're trying to cap, cap where we're going, so.
Yeah, and again, there are some more creative ways of financing that the county could consider. I've had the conversation with different people before. One of the limitations the county's got is virtually everybody in the county has some sort of a tax exemption. Either they got a homestead or they got an ag exemption. There are very few people in the county that are paying the full tax rate. And that's just an underlying fundamental problem. If you've got an agricultural county, which we're still predominantly agricultural, and the next biggest chunk of it's residential, you're not going to collect as much tax base as a county that's, more commercial, in nature. Or, you get to, the bigger counties typically get to a point where the agricultural interests aren't influential enough in the county to defend that, high ag exemption, and they start cutting it back and cutting it back. And go to Harris County, I don't know that you can even get an ag exemption anymore. We're not quite there yet. We're short, a couple of zeros on the population. But it's sort of the arc of the county's tax life. As counties become more and more heavily settled in things, and the agricultural interests diminish, that eventually those exemptions go away. And I've seen, not on a countywide basis, but on some of the smaller cities that I work with, where they'll actually go in and start either capping or eliminating even the homestead exemptions.
Well, I just mentioned that because we get a lot of calls from citizens who have moved in from the cities, and they still expect, they're not used to the dirt roads and, the county living, or the restrictions, or the, I won't say tightness we have on our budget. We just can't, do those roads, like they want all on our own. But you have some of them that have paid and are willing to do a little bit more, so I'm sure we're gonna see more of that, especially with the growth coming in that we're anticipating, or that we're
We get
seeing.
a lot of those kind of calls, and
Yes.
it's always interesting when, somebody moved to the county a few months ago and bought a place on a gravel road.
And you're gonna pay
Immediately
this road.
start wanting to get it paid. It's like, wasn't that gravel when you bought the property?
Yeah.
That's why the property was less expensive and why the tax rates are lower and everything. Now, I would point out, the county already has a policy where residents can come in and pay a portion of the cost of having their road paved. And we have that, the surfacing donation policy.
Well, maybe they don't know about it.
A lot of people probably don't know about it. It's on the website, but most people aren't that bored that they spend a lot of time browsing through our website. But what we did that last year on McCrea, the residents came in and it was, again, the people were people that moved there relatively recently from the city and a little more well-to-do and were able to afford it. But the way the policy is set up, the residents can pay half of the cost of the materials to have the road paved, and the county pays the other half. So it saves the county some money. Again, we had some complaints from some people when we did that in the rest of the neighborhoods of, why didn't you do ours? Well, these folks paid and y'all didn't. I said, well, I wasn't given a chance. Well, the way we have handled it, that's a resident-driven process. And we say, okay, if you're interested in this, and you can go and get the property owners in at least a half-mile-long section of the road, get them to agree to pay the additional cost, we can do that. But we're not gonna go out and pull those people and find out and talk it up. That's your initiative. And then the other part of it, they're only paying half the cost of the paving. So they can move up on the list and get their work done in the year they pay for it. And their road might not have been on the list to get paid for 4 or 5 years. So
And the name of it is what?
It's the surfacing donation policy.
Surfacing donation.
Joanne,
policy.
look, I believe it shows in the road and bridge section. I'm pretty sure it does. Or I can send you a copy of it when I send the spreadsheet out.
Okay.
So
That'd be
there
good
is a
to have.
mechanism there. And it basically, like I said, they're paying for half of the materials. And it has to be at least a half-mile long section of road, and it has to have the full 60-foot right-of-way. And so if they can meet those criteria, if they'll donate, the right-of-way that's needed, whatever, then we go ahead and do that. So that is an opportunity, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of that.
Is that just for county roads, or can that apply to private roads as well?
Just county.
County.
Just county
Yeah.
roads?
Yeah,
We're
we're
private.
very limited on what we can do on private roads. There is one policy that I'm aware of that allows the county to get involved in private roads. And it's, Commissioner Cox and I have been working with that here recently. But that requires, an assessment on the properties to be made and a vote of the public and everything.
And what policy is it?
It's under state law.
Okay.
There's a provision in state law that allows a county to take over private subdivision roads, do the work to bring them up to county standards, and assess the residents in that subdivision, the cost of that work.
We own the
There has
property.
to be a majority vote of the public.
Which is almost like the the reinvestment zone. Almost.
It's similar, it's similar. There has to be, majority vote of the property owners in that subdivision. And the county's expenses, obviously are incurred up front, and then a lien is placed on the property. And then some of the details they don't explain in the state statute, but what we talked about is the county would set up a payment schedule. It's okay, here's the assessment for your property. We expect annual payments over the next 5 years or 10 years, and it's guaranteed by a lien on the property. Now, I'm sure you're aware, lien on the property doesn't get, paid off until the property gets sold if the property owner doesn't make those payments. And so, it could be 30 years before the county recoups its money. So I'll send you a copy of that to look at too.
We
Again,
did something similar like that in the city of Navasota, where even on country roads, it could work on country roads where you have older culverts that cause the water to come out on the road. The city bought the culverts, and then they paid the city back over so many months. No lien was placed on their property, but because they get a city bill, it was, added to their bill. But it was a way of getting culverts replaced to keep the water flow off the road, which helped tremendously in that area.
Yeah, and unfortunately, cities have more latitude in some
Right.
of these things than we do. The culvert situation is a policy decision for the county. And the county has chosen not to pay for individual driveway culverts. But that's a policy that y'all could change, you know, the next meeting if you wanted to. I think there were times in the past when the county did do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then they
When I
decided
moved
it was
in with
too expensive. And so now it's, you know, you get the culvert, you put it in. The only thing we do is we tell people, if we are working on that road, if we're doing ditch work on
Mhm.
that road, and you buy the culvert, we'll go ahead and place it for you while we're there. And that's, you know, very little extra effort for us, and that way we get it set right. And you don't go through a period where the ditch flows nicely and then goes around somebody's old culvert and tears up the road.
Well, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Agenda item number 4, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
That's okay.
There's a motion before the court by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Walker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, we're adjourned.